Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
My name is Teazel Kawome. I'm a mental health counsellor and I'm also in the lovely Melbourne. My story really goes back to I've been in mental health for about 16 years now, working in that space with different types of clients. And for me, my journey personally started when I was 18. So at the age of 18, I remember sitting in the doctor's office with my very best friend at the time, holding my hand, and she whispered to me, "It's going to be okay." Then my name got called out, and it was my turn to go to the doctor's office. And a familiar walk to the doctor's room that I had done so many years, but for this time, it felt like a million steps just to get to the room. As I sat there with my best friend squeezing my hand tightly, the doctor said the words, "It's positive." And she said, "It's positive, you are pregnant." And the fear just zoomed through my body. My heart started pounding faster. 18 years old, what have I done? What are my parents going to think? What's going to happen to me? Started thinking I'm supposed to be the good, quiet child. I'm one of 4 children. I have an older brother who his own story was a lot of chaos, a lot of troublemaking in his teenage years. My sister, the older one, I had labeled her as perfect. She got good grades. She was sporty. She was just, everything. And then my younger brother was the baby. So I had labeled myself as the quiet one, the obedient one, the one who got things, stood out in the corner. But here I was now pregnant. My friend was shocked. I was shocked. And as we drove home, it was a very quiet trip home. As I dealt with that issue now of being pregnant and being 18 years old, my mom then, I couldn't tell her till 7 months later. Didn't know what to say, managed to hide it for that long. And then she said to me, when I finally had the courage and there was no way out because I was showing, she said, "Oh, you should have told me earlier." And that was her only response. There was no anger, there was no frustration. And as I had my baby, the last few months of the pregnancy were a lot better because now I had spoken out and I felt, at peace, and I was getting help with all the stuff I needed. And couple months passed by and I gave birth to the most beautiful baby girl in the world. She's gorgeous. Um, Sitting there, I was thinking, wow, this is beautiful. But then going home after those initial time, I just started to feel very low. My mood dropped. I didn't enjoy simple things like going outside for a walk. Started withdrawing from my friends and not taking their calls. One of my friend's mom came to visit and she was a midwife, and she said, the baby's actually looking jaundiced, and encouraged me to go outside with her more so she can get some vitamin D. My parents then we had living in Zimbabwe, we had a maid and she was very good with my baby. She used to take her out and go for walks, because for me, those simple things felt like such a chore. It was hard all of a sudden, and I didn't understand what it was. Simple things like, have my baby to feed her, and then I'd just want to give her back. I'll do what I can to make sure she's well taken care of and she's okay. But the basic, but then I would always withdraw back to myself, back to my room. And sitting there, self hygiene was just the basics because I had to clean up because I had a baby to feed. And then the years did go by, and then I noticed again I got pregnant with my son a few years later, going then, and again gave birth to a gorgeous boy. This time I'm older, I've got things together, I'm working, I'm able to look after it, money, everything wasn't an issue. But then I noticed again that these feelings started to come back. And then the withdrawing again. I started to withdraw from my friends. I started to withdraw from activities that I enjoyed, started keeping to myself. Would only go to the shops for the necessities because at that time I had 2 kids to look after. So making sure they had the food in the house, and that was it. Taking my daughter to school and coming back home. Very much a secluded life and not interested in anything at all. I would put my baby to sleep in his cot, and 2 minutes later, I'm back again checking in on him and coming out again. Doing that constantly, checking on him to make sure he's okay when I know I've just birthed him, I've just bathed him, but that continuous check. There was a friend who did maintain contact. She didn't give up on me. She didn't care that I was withdrawing, but she would come and just to help me out with the basics, just to clean up, wash up, feed my kids, those kind of things. And even the simple things of just sitting on the couch to help me, to just sit with me. Um, those kind of things that she did. And she would sit there with me and I would cry sometimes and I wouldn't understand why I'm crying. I'd explain how guilty I felt for not just being a better mom to my 2 kids, and just the low energy and that I was experiencing at the time. And she did encourage me to go out and to join this group of women that she felt would really benefit, and I kept saying no, no. But eventually because of her kindness, I felt like I should really put some effort in and go in there and see what it's all about. So I attended the group, and to my surprise, I found women who were able to show their emotions, speak about their deepest, darkest concerns, and they were welcomed. There was no judgment. There was no, no criticism, but just women who were sharing and open to help and, offering hugs, offering ideas. So I kept attending because this actually, my curiosity was now really like, oh, what is this all about? And I kept attending and I kept seeing the warmth and kept seeing the vulnerability and the freedom that each woman would walk out of week after week. And as I kept attending, I felt that my guard was coming down and that I was becoming more open and to share how I was feeling. and my story. And as I did that, I felt just this lifting. You can't really explain it, but it was a lifting of my shoulder and my heart, the tightening that had been there. And I actually began to share my story. And that is when I realized, as I was speaking, that I had been depressed. And working in mental health for all these years prior to my son, I had come across people with postnatal depression, but I'd always managed to distance myself. And as a professional, I had that, I should know better, I should be better, I should do better. But there is no boundaries with with something like that. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. It affects everybody. And as I began to speak about my story, then I realized that I actually was depressed. And as I began to speak about it and actually voice it out, those feelings were able to come alight, and the perspective changed, and the support around me was there, which was great. And I was able to engage with other women, and we were able to support each other and myself. And eventually the guard came down, the stigma that I had placed on myself came down, and I was able now to be in a space where I could be free to be me and to speak about what's going on and get some support. And over the years, as my son grew, as my daughter grew up, as a mom, I was able to be fully present, because now I'm healed. I am okay. I'm in a place where I can be me again. And it wasn't the fact that it happened when I was 19 and happened when I'm older. Still, it's just that that's the nature of the illness. It hits us all at different points. And because I didn't recognize it before, but was able to recognize it after, was a lot. Um, was very good, very helpful. And as I have grown over the years with that, I decided, look, this is something that we need to speak up about. And if I can get support, then I want to help other women, because I felt that this group that I had joined, that allowed me to grow and be me and come out of my shell, was a space that every woman needs. We go through so much internally, and we don't speak out. I could be walking in the street and nobody would know what's going on inside of me, because that's the nature of mental illness, is that it's so internal. So I decided that I want to help other women. I want them to know that it doesn't have to be something that imprisons them, and that is okay, to have a low, and we don't understand why it happens or when, but it does. And that support is available there if you need it. So I then developed From the Heart Counselling Service, which is a counseling service for women with postnatal prenatal depression, a space where they can get some support with their pregnancy. And it's not just after pregnancy, because studies do show that prenatal is actually just as affected too. As as we're getting pregnant or wanting to get pregnant, we have so many hormones, we have so many things that we are going through, and we will experience that change. So From the Heart Counselling is a support for women to get that support, is a support system for women to find a space to talk about those issues, to gain some support. And the sooner we can get that support, then the sooner you can get to that place of being yourself. Being a mom changes us internally, externally, and sometimes dealing with those issues is very difficult. But the message that I really wanted to get out there is that it's very normal. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, nothing to be ashamed of. When I finally got to speak out, I was like, why was I holding this? Because the freedom that I experienced after that was amazing. And just the guilt and the shame that I felt, towards my family or my parents or myself, was something that I realized was self-imposed. But help is out there, and thriving as a mom now, I enjoy it. I love being a mom. I enjoy my children. I enjoy the role that it brings, and I'm really intentional about it now, and want mothers to enjoy motherhood, because it is such a privilege. It is such a gift, and it's something that we can nurture on, because we one day will become grandmothers, aunts, uncles, in whatever aspect. So to be able to come from a place of healing and wholeness, then we're able to help others who need it too. And that's just really important. Putting ourselves first is not a selfish thing. I found out throughout my journey that unless I'm okay, then how is everybody else going to be okay?
Wow. Your story is so real and more common than it's uncommon. Unfortunately, for a lot of African women, we don't talk about mental health issues, we don't talk about depression. We go through these experiences and we don't even share.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your journey with us. So your approach is described as client-centered and strength-based.
Mm.
Can you explain what this means in your practice and how it benefits your clients?
Sure, yes, definitely. Client centered really is about the client is the one that is actually drawing the process, because I believe that you are actually the expert in your life. It is your life. I am just there to facilitate it. I'm there to help you navigate the path that you want to follow. You know, um, Client centered is about you being the focus. Yes, I am the expert in the field, but I'm not the expert in your life. Nobody is. No matter how many people may try to tell you, yes, we have qualifications in different specs, but when it comes to your day-to-day life, how you live, it is only you. So that's definitely the approach that I love to take. The only approach that I want to take is to let you take the driving seat and allow me to to help you navigate the goal. So that means, what do you want to come out of it? What do you want for yourself? What do you see for yourself? What are the issues in your life? And then I can navigate that with you. And strength based is really about using the strengths in your life, the pillars that you have to help you move forward. So we're not focusing on your shortfalls, we're not focusing on your downfalls. We are helping you to enhance what is strong so that it can be stronger. And sometimes when we do that, not sometimes actually, a lot of the time when we look at our strengths, then we're able to stand out more and prioritize and see clarity and do things from a strength base, and then even our weaknesses can then be looked at from there. I hope
That's
I explained
absolutely
well.
wonderful. No,
Yeah.
no, this is awesome. So my next question for you is, what has been some of the most challenging and rewarding aspects of working with individuals across different life stages, from adolescence to older adults?
Yeah, I think the point you just shared there, Gertrude, is about our culture, the African, we don't talk about these things. It's taboo. So that's really one of the challenges I've found with the older clients. It's actually breaking that stigma, breaking that cultural traditional aspect.
Yeah.
When actually, you know, these things, mental illness is not based on culture or tradition where you're from. The fact that it hits us all.
Yeah.
Um, we might be able to hide it better or label it different, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I find that's one of the, the challenges I've found with the older African um, clients. But
Hmm.
once they come to that place of saying, "Oh, this is what I have. This is what it is, and it's okay." We're able now to go deeper, and we're able to break that stigma really and see the
Mm.
support. Um, with the younger generation, they're after authenticity. So they don't want the fake. They don't want the the act. If you have younger kids, they don't want a fake Nike. They want the
The
real
real
Nike.
thing.
They want the real Tiffany and Co. They don't want the fake. And I think that's really challenged me to come up higher with them, to present my downfalls, to present my, when they also bring up their challenges with their home life. It's about that being authentic. Show me your
Yeah.
scars, but don't be afraid that I'm gonna make those same mistakes. But show me your scars, but let's navigate it together. And just being real with them, I found is something that they really want. They want the authentic, not just in their material things, but in their day-to-day life. Yeah.
So you talk about mental health in the context of pregnancy. How does mental health specifically affect pregnant women? And what are the key factors you focus on in your counseling?
Yes, so with mental health and pregnancy, we're already going through a whole hormonal change anyway. And it's also quite individual, but depending on, first of all, how you got to be pregnant, what's your current circumstance in that pregnancy. There's
Yeah.
relational issues, there's even perhaps mental health issues before that. But we
Mm-hmm.
find that in pregnancy, because you're already at that heightened state, then those issues do come up more. So we're looking at things of there's anxiety, there's especially with the newborn mothers or those who've had pregnancies before that were quite intense.
Yes.
Anxiety factor is higher because you're concerned about the unknowns. There's the trust issues, not just trusting professionals, but trusting yourself as an individual. So I find that when in pregnancy, those, because your emotions are already heightened, then those kind of issues come out. There's the sleep deprivation, and when you're sleep deprived, even if you're not pregnant, that you don't function the same. You're either more
Mm-hmm.
angry, you're either more frustrated, or those kind of things. So there's the sleep
Yes.
deprivation. There's also weight and body images concerns. Your body is changing, stretching, growing. Um, so you're also dealing with your body changing, and there's a lot of factors regarding body changes and how do I cope, what do I do. There's also the relational part, which I did mention, how things in your relationships are going, but not just with yourself and your partner, your husband, could be extended
Yes.
families. And also the employee and employer benefits, affects that too. Do you work less? Do you work more? What do you do? So it's really about helping the pregnant woman balance that, their whole outlook and their whole life into what is shaping into,
Mm.
or what it's been shaped from. So we look at anxiety, we look at the mood fluctuations, we look at sleep, we look at diet, we look at exercise, because all those things do affect your mental well-being, um,
Yeah.
so that you can carry well, but also after the baby, how do you maintain those
Yeah.
aspects so that you continue to be well as a mom, as a parent?
Mm. So postnatal depression is a significant concern for many new mothers.
Mhm.
What are the common signs you advise people to look out for? And what are your primary strategies for helping women cope with this condition?
Yeah, that's a very good question, which many women actually are like, oh, I didn't realize. But
Mm.
when after you've had your baby, there's that period of time when you're adjusting, the baby's adjusting, the family's adjusting, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very normal when you're not yourself. Actually, we all
Yeah.
change when you give birth, but when you start to notice that there's a persistent length of time in how your behavior is going, so it is different for everybody, but it could be, you are struggling with low mood, you're finding your mood is, the things you used to enjoy, you're not enjoying anymore. And not
Yeah.
just enjoying, they're not of any interest to you.
Mm,
The guilt, the conversation that we have in our heads, because you don't even have to voice it. But like I shared in my story, that I kept checking on my baby constantly. And that's
mm,
beyond new mother or new mom syndrome, where you're just checking. But I literally knew that I had put him down and he was fine, but then I'm back in the room again. And that
mm,
behavior is something that alerting you that something is wrong there. The withdrawal from your loved ones, your peers or your family, those kind of things, when you find that you're not interested in keeping company with the people that are close to you, or the ones you had before. That's also another indicator. um
okay.
your appetite increasing or decreasing significantly. I know we also say, you sleep when your baby sleeps, but sometimes
Mm,
you just not being able to switch off. You can't sleep.
yeah, yeah.
So those
Wow.
those are some key identifiers that you can start to notice if they're persistent over some
So
time.
you've conducted workshops and training for community organizations.
Mhm.
How important is community education in mental health? And what topics do you usually cover in these sessions?
Yes, in a community, I think it's very important. I also spoke about in my story how I found support in a community. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Doing it all alone, yes, it's possible, but it's also very difficult. And the
Yeah.
community is something I really find to be important. I started in part of our counseling practice. We have a Mom Matters program. This is where we have women come together who are just to find that environment where you can be together. There's no judgment, there's just the encouragement, there's the empowerment. And in those workshops, I really encourage women to not necessarily join my program, but join a space where you feel you can, one that's close to you, one that's around you, and to just have a space where you can communicate with
Yes.
somebody. Um, Isolation is one of the things that unfortunately postnatal depression draws you to, but it's also a place where you find the cycle repeats itself, where you're going round in your thoughts, round in your negativity. So in our groups, we really encourage that you find a tribe, a space where you can be, and we talk about that a lot. We also talk about normalizing mental health and depression, and it's not, we have people who have physical health needs, and just because you can see them doesn't necessarily make it better or easier. People have illnesses such as, unfortunately, like cancer or, you know, um, leukemia, those kind of things. And because
Mm,
we can see it, we tend to approach it differently. But
yeah.
because mental health is also shown differently for each person, then um, the way people respond to it is different. But we want to break down the stigma. So we normalize conversations about mental
Mhm.
illness. We normalize conversations about, look, I'm feeling low today and it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's the end, but that there is help and support out there. So we want to normalize mental illness. We want to normalize feeling low or anxious, and we also really talk about, well, what's the next step from there. You don't stay in that low state, you don't have to stay in that anxiety. What can you do? How can you get support? What support is there? So there's the education aspect, there's the awareness aspect of saying this is what's out there, this is how you can access it, and where you can go.
Okay. So you've provided crisis intervention in various settings. Can you share how these experiences have shaped your approach to mental health counseling?
I think what I've really learned from crisis intervention is that a key part is that this could have been prevented. And that's the key message, that before it gets to crisis, what could have happened there is that there's gaps in the system. Sometimes one professional is aware of it and another professional isn't. So, as professionals, as the experts in the field, let's communicate so that everybody is aware of what's going on with that individual, and that can help eliminate the gaps and the crisis. And also communication with the individual client. A lot of the time they feel ashamed to ask for help, or especially if it's happened before, they're like, oh, it keeps happening, so I'm too, they know me and there's no point. So having that support is able to speak up, so empowering the individual that, look, it's better for you to get help earlier rather than later, and there's no harm in speaking out before is also good. And just checking um, the process. So we, in a crisis, yes, we're there and the services are there quickly, but it's the in between. So who's there? Where were we last time? What did we do? Where are we now? That constant checking is important. I shared in my story that I had my postnatal as a teenager, early teen, but when I had my son, I was 30. So there's no age limit, there's no gap, there's no time period. So you could be having this depression for so long and it's still there just because it's hidden. So
visible.
Yes, so there's no time limit. So just because you've received help 2 years ago doesn't mean you no longer need help 5 years later. So those kind of things are important to prevent the crisis, I believe.
So empathy and the ability to establish trust quickly are key qualities that you possess. How did these qualities enhance your effectiveness as a counselor?
I think that the key part is because I've lived it, so I can understand it, and I know it sounds like a very casual thing to say, but there's something about someone knowing your story, someone who's walked in it, able to have a broader view than someone who's just studied it. For example, there's no emotional attachment. There's actually a story I heard of this woman who went to a counselor, and the man was quite abrupt with her, only because of he didn't understand it from her perspective, and she left. And then a few years later, because his wife got something similar that he was counseling that lady for, he actually found her and apologized and said, I had head knowledge, but I didn't have heart knowledge. And I think that's the key factor about empathy. It's about having that heart knowledge, having that, I see where you are, I'm walking with you, I want to walk with you. And that's what I want. I want my clients and whoever I work with to say that we had a relationship, we had an understanding. And even if it's not the ideal picture at the end, or we have to part or whatever, I want them to feel understood. I want them to feel heard, because for me that was a very key breakthrough to my healing and transformation to where I am today. So I'm very intentional and passionate about doing those things.
That's awesome. So how do you keep yourself updated with the latest research and best practices in the field of mental health counseling?
Well, and one of them is being under a governing body. It's one of the requirements that I have to do. I have to keep up to date with what's going on and ensure that I'm incorporating that. I attend seminars. I also have a supervisor that I talk to every month or even sooner, so that we're always ensuring that I'm on the right page and I'm keeping up to date with what's out there.
Oh, that's excellent. So my last question for you today is, what advice would you give those aspiring to enter the field of mental health counseling, particularly specialized in areas like anxiety, depression, and maternal mental health?
I think a key aspect, which is what I shared even earlier, is what is the reason you're doing it?
Yes.
If it's a money issue, like you want to be rich, you want to be famous, you want to be, then yes, you might get there, but the heart of it is what are you doing it for? What's your why? What's your purpose? Um, because I find when we approach anything from that aspect, yes, you might find the fame and the wealth, which is great, but you also helping people to be free from those things that are really entangling them. So what is your why? Why are you doing it? And I think that's very key because you can do we can do anything for money in this world. There's nothing that you can't do for money. But it's the heart aspect for me. Reason what is the reason you want to do, why do you want to work in anxiety management? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And what do you want to see for yourself? So for me, the why is key. What is the purpose behind it?
So let's finish off with your words of advice to any young mom who might be experiencing anxiety, depression, post and prenatal, and how they can reach you.
Definitely, yes. Well, if you're listening or looking at me now, I am a product of being well, and I've been well for so many years now. So I just want to encourage you and tell you that this is not the end. You don't have to stay in that state. You can get support and you can get help. Anxiety and depression are not a death sentence. They are not it's not the overall for your life. I am thriving as a mother, enjoying motherhood, empowering other mothers. So if I can do it, I really believe that any mother can, and it is our right to enjoy motherhood. I am available on all socials. I'm on Instagram, Miss Teazel K, Facebook, Teazel Kawome, on LinkedIn. From the Heart Counselling Service is our counselling support service. We also have Mom Matters, which you can also find again on all social platforms and on the internet. You just type it and we come up. And just to encourage you as a mom to get support, speak out. You don't have to stay. People don't know unless we tell them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the truth about it. They won't know unless you speak out.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming online today and sharing this amazing story. The Diversity Connector is trying to bring people who bring all of these diverse views. Your story has been very, very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity.
That's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open,